discuss bridges. One of my son's favorite subjects. Bridges. Along with dinosaurs and tractors.
So first of all, I want to start with what is a bridge, because it's not uniformly understood what a bridge is in New York State. The first one is actually a picture of a town bridge. It's actually in the town of Denmark. That's one of their bridges, even though it looks like a culvert pipe. We generally tend to think this structure looks like a bridge, but really the definition legally is anything that spans more than 20 feet by law is considered a bridge in New York State. And that's going to be really important in just a second, because you'll see what happened with the legislation and why all of this came about, the span of a 20-foot becoming the definition of a bridge. So what really happened from 1930 to 1970 is bridges were unregulated. They were the local bridge owner's responsibility. There was no inspections on them. We just owned them and took care of them. In the early 1970s, we started to see bridges collapse around the United States, and legislation started to get put in place on both the federal and state level to deal with that. They assigned a structures division in New York State and an ad hoc inventory and inspection unit formed. They said, maybe we ought to start inspecting and do something with them. And so they started it's called the BISS, which is the Bridge Inventory and Inspection System, and it's a statewide database. You can go in and look for any bridge in New York State, and you can see what condition it's in. And they do element level inspections with ratings collected in every inspection cycle on every bridge in New York State is what's happening now. So what happened is in the late 70s, the state became responsible for the inspection of local bridges. When that happened, they decided, do we want all the towns in the county to own bridges? The county's probably in a better situation with engineering to do their inspections. So when they were debating all this, they originally thought the counties would do the inspections. They decided that wasn't going to work because there were still a lot of rural counties that didn't have engineers on staff. So the state took over the inspection function. But in that process, there was legislation that was passed right around 1987, the Schoharie Creek collapse on the New York State Thruway. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it was actually a really big deal. There was 10 fatalities, and that's a picture of the New York State Thruway over the Schoharie Creek. And when that happened, New York State passed a bunch of legislation regulating and controlling bridges. The 1988 legislative action called the Graber Bill resulted in a uniform code of bridge inspection. Current program resulted due to this bill and higher standards than those imposed by the Federal Highway Administration. Inspector qualifications, load ratings, all sorts of stuff started to come out of that. What they also said is that every bridge 25 feet and longer will become the responsibility of the county. So that was by law. So that's why we actually manage bridges on town roads if they're longer than 25 feet. But that legislation said any bridge between 20 and 25 feet will stay with the town. So we have town-owned bridges that are 20 to 25 feet, and we have county-owned bridges that are 25 feet and greater, is how it worked out as a result of all of these changes that started happening in the late 70s, early 80s. And I believe here in Lewis County, we had a bridge collapse in the 80s as well over the Moose Creek. I ran across some paperwork, and it was a pretty bad situation. So it was something that started happening, but in the process, they defined a bridge as 20 feet, but they made all bridges 25 feet and longer the responsibility of the counties. So it left this little gap of bridges with the town. So I want to show you how that all kind of played out in Lewis County. So in Lewis County, there are 17 towns with 879 miles of road and 30 bridges that remain, because those 30 bridges are the ones that were 20 to 25 feet. Now there's a few exceptions to that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The county has 250 miles of road, and we have 89 bridges. Those are not all on county roads. In fact, the majority of those are on town roads. It's just that they're bigger spans that we manage and control and take care of. So what happens in other counties? When this was all happening, the counties could choose what they wanted to do. The state law said counties must take everything 25 and over. But a lot of counties said, you know what, let's just take them all. So Washington, Chemung, St. Lawrence, Schoharie, Orleans, Sullivan, and Wayne all took all the bridges. There are no town-owned bridges in those communities. Some of them went even farther. And you can imagine a Board of Supervisors system doing this right here, right? Owns every span over 5 feet in length, Cattaraugus, Wyoming, and Genesee. So if it's even this big, it's the county's responsibility, even on town roads. And owns any span over 12 feet, Hamilton County is 12 foot. And Madison and Lewis, we stayed at the state legislated 25 feet. And that's kind of what happened. Now, we have a 3-person bridge crew here in Lewis County that goes out and maintains those bridges, devoted primarily to the maintenance of the bridges. Our crews do assist the towns in the maintenance and repair of those bridges. We're going to help Lowville right now with a head wall on one of their bridges. So whenever there's a problem, we do help the towns. If a bridge is flagged, county or town bridge is flagged, in order to take the flag off, a licensed engineer must design the fix and approve the fix. The towns do not have that capability, so we do that for them. Right now, whenever a town gets a flag, we call our engineers, the engineers approve the fix, and then we turn it into the state on behalf of the town. So we're doing a lot of those fixes as it is. We currently do this for all the towns. The bridge process of how we fund them and how we get them replaced is through the STIP, or the State Transportation Improvement Fund, which is a federal aid process. It's a very complicated process, and it's very difficult for most towns to go through and get money to replace their bridges. There's also the Bridge New York program that came out about 5 years ago. It was supposed to be easier. It is not. It is actually just federal money coming through New York State. It was a shell game. Ask Jo, and she looks at all the contracts. They're no different than the STIP process, but that's what they did. What happens is they usually fund the design of a new bridge, and then once the design is ready to go out to bid, we shop for funding either through the STIP or through Bridge New York to fund the construction of the bridge. Most of those right now are over $1 million. You're not going to see any bridge right now replaced for under $1 million. In fact, box culverts now are well approaching more than $1 million. What they do is we sit down on an annual basis with the folks in Watertown. We go through all the bridges, what condition they're in, and we make some decisions about which ones should be funded next for replacement or the priority. So then we shop for the construction money, and we go through the federal aid process, which is a lot of paperwork. It's a reimbursement program, so you have to have the money up front, which precludes a lot of towns from participating. 95% reimbursement if we get it through the STIP program. If it's a Bridge New York, it's 100% reimbursement. But we're going to talk a little bit about a few of these that have created problems for the towns just recently. Funds are capped under the Bridge New York program. They are capped to the initial award. So if a bridge can be awarded up to $5 million, but once they make the award, so if we say we get an engineer, the engineer puts in the application, the engineer believes it's going to be $2 million, it's capped at $2 million. If we get that award, that's what it's capped at. And we're going to talk about why that's a problem in a minute. So the Bridge New York culvert applications that are currently out there and we're currently doing right now. Wood Battle Road has been funded for design. Marshy Road has been funded for design. West Road over Whetstone Gulf has been designed, and we're waiting on a right-of-way issue. When using federal money, we have to own the right-of-way. We cannot just get an easement. And that bridge, the West Road over Whetstone Gulf, the land belongs to the federal government because of the park. And they used federal money originally to buy that park, so it's an enormous amount of hurdles. It's taken us almost a year to acquire about 5 feet to put the wing walls up.
Gee, that's a surprise.
Yeah, it's been brutal. That one's been very hard to get the right of way.
From the federal government in order to replace a bridge to give access to that federal property.
Yes.
That they require you to fix.
Right.
Yes, that we're being required to fix by them as well. So yeah, it's a very frustrating process. East Road over Moose Creek is designed, and we're any day now we should hear the results of the Bridge New York program, and we think that will be funded for construction. Whitesville Road over Gulf Stream, which is up in Barnes Corners, is designed and pending funding to construct, and we think that will also be funded under the Bridge New York program. West Road by Snow Ridge are the two box culverts. They've gone out to bid, actually.
We
And
funded those,
they should be doing those shortly.
but we didn't apply for it.
We did not apply for any money on those. The Gardner Road. So what happened is a number of the towns who've been sitting there with bridges or structures and they didn't know what to do came to me and asked them if I would help them put in applications. So we did. And we got, very successfully, we got funded. Gardner Road in the town of Lowville got funded, and that is ready to go to bid right now. O'Brien Road in the town of Lowville also got funded, and it is getting ready to go to bid right now. Now, one of the problems is it was capped at what it was initially estimated as. O'Brien Road was a culvert, which is now going to have to be a bridge. In order for us to get permits, it got over 20 feet wide. It was originally 18 feet wide, and the hydraulics are telling us it's got to be 23 feet wide, and now it's a bridge. So the cost went up. And the town of Lowville has got a delta there, because even though it's 100% reimbursed, they're not going to pay from the difference of what we initially thought it would be and what it's going to be now. So the town of Lowville on both of these projects is going to have a delta that they're going to have to make up if they want to continue to do these projects. Crowfoot Hill Road in West Turin was also successfully awarded for a box culvert on Crowfoot Hill Road. Same exact thing. That box culvert is almost $1 million. And it was awarded 800 and some, 820, I think that one was awarded. So the town of West Turin is going to have to come up with the difference if they want to build that box culvert. Bailey Road, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Bailey Road. It's partially designed right now, and we'll talk about the anxiety that has caused. Gregg Road over Fish Creek. These are applications that were put in this year that I helped the towns do. And I just want to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So on Gregg Road over Fish Creek, it is right now 3 metal culvert pipes side by side. In order to get that replaced, the DEC requires that to be a bridge, and that's going to be $1.4 million. So
I think it's important to say, in the past, the towns might have replaced those 3 culverts for a total cost of $50,000.
I bet you that what's there now is probably $50,000 when they did it 30 years ago. They didn't get a permit, which wasn't required then, but now if it's a CT stream, a trout stream, you have to get a permit from the DEC. A number of pieces of legislation in the last 5 years, 6 years, have changed the permitting process. So one of the requirements that's driving costs through the roof is every structure now has to be 1.5 times the width of the stream. Because what the DEC was concerned about is that these culvert pipes were restricting the flow and hurting all sorts of environmental, different species of fish and frogs and whatnot. So they don't want us to restrict the flow of streams anymore. So if the stream is 14 feet wide, you're going to have to go 1.5 times wider to put that structure in. That is a significant cost for a lot of these communities. In this case, it was 3 culverts side by side. They will not allow that anymore because it restricts fish passage because you're restricting the stream.
So you can't just throw in 4 culverts. It has to be spanned.
It has to be a span. I'm actually we're going to have the same problem right now. We have a culvert pipe just past it's actually on Pine Grove Road, just past the corner corral. There's the stream right there, and in that, it's a deep ravine actually, pretty deep ravine. And down in there's a 9-foot metal culvert pipe. Probably cost them $50,000 to do in the day. I had the DEC out here 2 weeks ago, and they're telling me that that's going to have to be at least 23 feet. There's no way we're going to let us replace that culvert pipe. So that's the reality, unfortunately. Please don't shoot me. I'm just telling you the fact.
Is that also though because of flooding that can go down that stream?
Yeah, so there's a lot of complications on that particular project because it is in what they call the floodplain of the Black River. Mm-hmm. So we have to get Army Corps permission as well. And in order for Army Corps to give us permission, and this gets kind of into the weeds of engineering, but there's a model that has to be a hydraulic model with backwater influence. So when the river rises and water comes back up, can it go through that culvert and how does it impact that culvert? It's called the hex grass model. Just running that hydraulic analysis is about $10,000. And you have to survey, you have to hire a surveyor to survey down to the Black River and then upstream as well. So now you got surveyors involved, you've got engineering involved just to get the permit because it's in the Black River floodplain. So yes, there's some complications with some of these, but that's one of them. West Turin over Michigan Mills, or Michigan Mills Road over Suckerbrook is estimated at 1.3 million. Watson Road, Hotel Road over Crystal Creek. That's an interesting one. That actually was a bridge, and at some point the town straightened the road because the road curved to go over the bridge. And to straighten the road, they stuck a culvert pipe at the end of the bridge and then buried it. And that culvert pipe is collapsing. But now the road is not over the bridge, it's over the culvert pipe. So there we go. It's a huge problem. That's about $1 million application right there. Lowville, Patton Road over Knowles Creek, 1.1 million. Montague, Flat Rock Road over Edict Creek. These are all applications we put in this year, 938,000 for that. And New Bremen, Erie Canal over Murmur Creek, 1.4 million. And New Bremen, Lomber over Crystal Creek, $2 million. Now that one is a huge example of what's happened here. Lomber over Crystal Creek is currently a very small culvert, never tops the road, but the engineering suggests it's got to be a 26-foot bridge. So that's one of them that's just, wow, what happened here. We went from a 4-foot culvert to a 26-foot bridge. I guess when it rains, it doesn't flood over the road, but it backs up. It creates head pressure, and that's not allowed anymore. You can't do that. So it's got to be designed to take a 100-year storm flood through these structures. So there's a lot going on here. This one is 15 feet currently, and it's required to be 44 feet going forward on that one for New Bremen. So why are we having this discussion? I was trying to get an accurate inventory of all the bridges in Lewis County. And in the process, I got the list from the state of New York and went out and inspected them all and checked on them. And I sent a list of the town bridges to the towns, and I had a whole bunch of towns call me and go, that's not our bridge. We don't have any bridges. And I said, well, I beg to differ with you, you do. And actually Krogan is one of those who said, that's not our bridge. And I said, well, it is. Contact New York State. And New York State said, yes, it is your bridge. So Krogan had a bridge they thought was ours. And so basically since 2006, no one has really been doing maintenance on it because no one knew who owned it. And that is actually true in a number of towns. I had a whole bunch of towns call me and go, ooh, these aren't ours. So that's why we started to have this conversation. What happened in Krogan is the county rebuilt that bridge in 2006. It was a under 25-foot span. The county received federal aid, and they went up there and rebuilt the bridge. By doing that, it didn't become the county's bridge. It stayed Krogan's bridge, but Krogan assumed it became our bridge. We replaced it, but we were just using federal dollars and helping the town of Krogan. It is now a much bigger span. It's on Long Pond Road over the west branch of Oswegatchie, and the span is 58 feet. So it's much bigger than the original bridge that was there. And I understand, talking to my guys, that when this was replaced in 2006, because on Long Pond Road there are no detours, so they had to leave cars parked on both sides of the bridge, and they had a walking bridge so that the people that lived up there could park their car, walk across, and get in another car and go to work or get groceries. So we had to provide a couple vehicles on either side for people because there was no way around this bridge. So Long Pond is kind of an interesting one for, and there's a bridge that I'm concerned up there on Long Pond now. So that's the bridge currently that Krogan did not realize was theirs, and it is. So what am I recommending? I'm not recommending the county take over all of these bridges, these 30 bridges that are owned by the towns, but I do think there's a productive conversation to be had in working with the towns. I would like to see a working group with a legislator, town supervisor, town highway superintendent, and myself, sit down and discuss the bridges and what the proper thing to do would be, and maybe there's some trades. Maybe they would like to pick up some responsibility on, maybe we can trade some things. But I do think the county is in a better position to maintain, manage, and own the bridges. But I don't think that it would make sense to just say, okay, we'll take them. How do we work together more efficiently and better is really the conversation. Does that make sense?
What happens to box culverts where they stay with the towns?
So-
Anything under 20 feet?
If it's under 20 feet, it would stay with the town. Yep. So I'm only looking at those. So box culverts, we have some box culverts that are just concrete square boxes that are 22 feet. New York State considers that a bridge because it's over 20. So we would consider having those, because those have to be inspected by an engineer annually, and we do get flags on those quite a bit, even the town ones. So one of the things that I've been doing, the state, when they inspect them, they give flags, and a flag is bad, you gotta go fix that right away. They also give you a bunch of notes called non-structural condition observations, just little things that they don't like. And a lot of those are drainage issues, where water is starting to scour behind the bridge. So our bridge crew has the little mini excavator, they have a mowing head, a ditching and digging bucket, and a compactor plate, and we just send them right out there as soon as I get those reports, and we fix that drainage problem, get that water away from the bridge, fix the back wing walls, mow out any brush that's growing up through the structure, and try to get ahead of it is what we've been trying to do.
What about, do you have any more on Watson?
Yes. So let's do, sorry. Town of Watson. So I had asked the towns if they were interested in submitting a Bridge New York application, and the town of Watson was. They submitted for the Bailey Road Bridge. It's the only bridge in the town of Watson, and we submitted an application on behalf of them. They received funding for that bridge in the amount of $675,000. At the time, that was a pretty accurate estimate. However, by the time now, fast forward a year and a half, with all of the construction costs going up, engineering estimate has gone up about $250,000. So they're receiving 100% funding. That's incorrect, not 95%. They're receiving 100% funding from New York State, which is at $675,000. The county is doing all the administration, and we agreed to pay up front for the construction, and then when we got reimbursed, we would just take the money back. So the town of Watson essentially had no money in the game. That is not the case now, because we don't really know what it's going to cost. It hasn't gone out to bid yet, but the engineering estimate has increased by $250,000 for that bridge. The final design has not yet been approved. It has not gone to bid, but obviously Watson is very concerned. They do not want to pay the delta of $250,000 on this bridge. We thought, and here's the trick, right? When we submit the applications, an engineering firm has to do them, and there's a formula that they use, and if it's too high, it gets kicked out. So they inflate the numbers to the best of their ability, but the inflation rate has been so high in the last 2 years, we're not keeping up. That's why the last 3 of these that this has happened. There's been a difference between what the application went in as and what the actual construction costs are going to be.
So how long is that bridge?
That bridge is, I'm going to say it's like 32 feet. And here's the thing, one of the problems that I see with the town owning bridges and the county owning bridges is, for the town of Watson, they only had one bridge, and they said, we'd like to obviously get our bridge taken care of, and if there's a grant to pay for it and it's free, why not? I would not have spent money on this bridge if it was part of the county inventory. This bridge goes to nowhere. If you go out North Chases Lake and then you continue straight on that road to Sperryville, and then you follow a dirt road out there you find this bridge. And on the other side of that bridge, there's not a single residence, there's not a camp, there is a hunting club, I believe, with a gate, and there is the Otter Creek Horse Trails. I would suspect the reason it got picked is because of the Otter Creek Horse Trails. That's my suspicion. Can't prove that, but why would New York State put that bridge as such a high priority in Lewis County when we have bridges where hundreds of people are driving across them every day? But they did. And so, obviously, Town of Watson says, great, it's free funding, we'll do it. And yeah, the Otter Creek Horse Trail system is good for our community, and we have no problem doing that. However, now that there's a $250,000 delta, and the state says, we're out, we're giving you $675, you figure it out, they don't want to pay that $250. Now, the dilemma that we're in is if we don't go forward with the project, it is possible that we have to reimburse them for all of the engineering up to this point.
Who is
The
we?
state.
The county? The county would have to.
Watson. It is most likely, though, Andrea, that if we don't go forward, we can apply for a hardship exemption and they won't make us pay them back. But there's a risk there. There is some risk. And, you know, we're going to get $675,000 of state money. So the question is it worth the extra $250 to get this bridge done? And who should pay for it? My opinion, it'd be nice if the DEC did, because the Otter Creek Horse Trail is theirs. But we've asked, and they very firmly said no. We did ask, and not just us, but New York State DOT reached out to New York State DEC and said, we've got a problem here, and we think this bridge is important to you. And they said, nope, we don't have any money. So Town of Watson is actually pretty nervous. They don't know what to do.
Joan, what happens if you have a town highway, because there's a town road on the other end of this bridge?
Yes.
That's not attached to the rest of the road network because the bridge has been flagged and you can't cross it. I mean,
Yes.
could a landowner potentially sue and demand access? Because I'm wondering if that might be.
If it was a town road, yeah, they could, because you have to maintain, the town has to maintain its town roads.
Right.
It hasn't been abandoned, right?
No, it has not been abandoned. And this is and I'll show you a county bridge that's the same scenario here, Ian, that I'm concerned about in that same regards. It's actually the worst bridge in Lewis County. And it's called the Moose River Road Extension. And if you go out the Moose River Road almost to the town of Webb, there is a bridge over the Moose River that we own. Lewis County owns this bridge right here.
It's about 2/3 of the way across.
Yeah, it's about 2/3 of the way across the Moose River Road. This little bridge goes across the Moose River, and there are 2 camps on the other side of it. That's it. That bridge is rated to 2 ton right now, and it's in very, very, very bad condition. I contacted the 2 property owners up there. It's just their camps, and I said, we'd like to abandon the road and give you the bridge. We're generous people like that, right? Why not?
No harm in trying.
I'll give it to you.
And they said, where do we sign?
Right.
They actually said, why don't we do that? Because when it fails, the county's going to buy us a new bridge. And that bridge is probably going to be a $5 million bridge. And I said, no, what the county's going to do is we're going to put up boards or gates on both sides of the bridge if you want to have access to your camps. If you own it and just choose to park on this side and use it as a walking bridge, it'll probably last another 15 years. But if you're running propane trucks across that, or heavy trucks, it's probably going to get closed. And when it gets red flagged, I have no choice but to put barriers up and prevent them from using it, period. They won't have access to their camps. Now, the question is, what happens?
Sued, yeah.
Are they going to sue us because it's a public road and we blocked access to it? Or do we have the right at that point to say we can't justify that kind of expenditure for 2 camps, 2 seasonal residents? Don't know. I will defer to the lawyers in the room.
Well, the alternative is they ford the river right there.
Yeah, there you go.
But, you know, DEC is gonna frown on that for sure.
Yeah. So that was one that in going through the inventory popped right to the top to me, that like, wow, there's a huge liability sitting there. But how do we deal with it? I don't know.
So Andrea and I did go to the Town of Watson board meeting last month, and they have formally requested that the county help them with this. It's not such an easy question because, as Tim pointed out, they're not the only town that has bridges in need of assistance, and it's a bit of a Pandora's box, for the county. It's tough because you fix that bridge once, for 75% of the funding covered by the state, we locally can come up with that other 25%. Who knows what type of economic development? I mean, it'll be fixed for 65 years. Who knows what might develop, over the course of that time. So it's definitely a tough one.
Could the county loan them the $250 with a repayment over several years?
We talked to them about bond because it happened to be the same time that their accountant, the meeting was the same meeting as their accountant was there, and there wasn't a lot of appetite for that.
But they have the fund balance for it, don't they, right now? I thought that's
They can also use their CHIPS money. So they could defer road work for 1 year, and their CHIPS money would pretty much cover that. So there's some alternatives, maybe not ones that they want.
Yeah.
And nobody saw it coming. I mean, obviously,
Sure.
they wouldn't have put the application in. We wouldn't have offered to help do it if they.
So Tim, isn't there another way to get in to the other side of that property?
Not that I'm aware of.
I think there is.
I think there is.
I don't know what condition it's in.
So I've been told that there is state forest that had an old road or something through there. I tried.
I don't know for sure. I know that it's private property on the other side of the bridge.
Yes.
And I think they can come in from a different way.
Oh, really?
I'm not
Okay,
sure,
I
but
don't
I
know.
think.
Yeah, I don't know the answers to that.
So we would still have to do a bridge then, if there's.
Originally, did that come out on the Donaldsburg Road, which is now closed?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I don't know for sure.
That's the only thing I could think that might be on the other side of that
It's Skiff, that
river.
Skiff knows the land percent.
Yeah, it's Teal's hunting camp.
There was access as far as timber harvesting, going out a different way, but not as far as getting a vehicle through.
Yeah.
But that's all forest preserve, isn't it, Jack? It's not,
No, the other side of the Moose River, there's a lot of private land.
oh, I'm talking about, I thought we were on
Sperryville,
Sperryville.
yeah, that goes up to mostly state, well, now wilderness, and they won't plow you through. A lot of the classification up there has been changed. Anything in the park has been designated as more wilderness or preserve rather than state forest, so they will never allow access out the other way.
Back on the Moose River, that road, I think, continued and came out on Route 28 Moose River Bridge, just east of the river.
It actually went
There's
both
3 or
ways.
4, there's a half a dozen camps if you, I'm guessing that that road followed the river all the way out to 28 at one point.
I think that's the abandoned portion of the Abbey Road.
That was a portion of the Abbey Road?
I believe it was the abandoned portion that went all the way up to 28. That's where the,
I thought the Abbey Road went to Otter Lake. No?
I think that was on the other side of it. Or it might have been a logging road that was in there as well. I'm familiar with the bridge because I thought I was going to die when I put my ambulance over it once.
Wow.
Looks like that move is a good idea, Tim.
Right there is where we're talking about. So that's originally, it shows it going up the dead end,
Isn't that the, off to the left there, isn't that the Donaldsburg Road? I can't quite read it.
Lover's Lane and
No.
Dragway Road?
So you cross the Independence right there, follow the river up, and then right,
That's Elbow Road, Old Number 4 Trail.
okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. So the white's all private land
Yes.
and the green state.
Mm-hmm.
So if Town of Watson used their CHIP money for a year, is that gonna set them back quite a bit in the future?
It would prevent them from doing road work for that year, and that's not good. I mean, they absolutely need their CHIPS money. I think the town of Watson currently uses some of their CHIP money for equipment too.
I do too.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I think I'd like to know what, and maybe this would be something for Joan to look into, what legal obligations municipalities have to maintain bridges, and could the town get sued? Because maybe they're on the hook anyways. And then if the county's gonna help us, says, we need to have some kind of criteria for these types of projects instead of, just doling it out one at a, from whoever asks. And I think this also bears on the discussions we have about sharing excess sales tax revenue, which we don't do, or we do it on an ad hoc basis. If the county legally is required to assume more of these functions, and highway is the most important function of any town, that's something we need to take into consideration as well.
So as per Tim's request to set up a group, do we need a motion to move that forward? Or?
You can set up an
I think it's a good idea.
It looked like a per town thing that you're
It is.
suggesting, right?
There's a number of towns that have no bridges. Pinckney has none. Harrisburg has none. So some of them have none. And Krogan, I think, has the most with 5. West Turin has 5. So it just depends on the town. So I think, and I also think it's important to have a conversation with the supervisor and the highway superintendent. Maybe they don't. Maybe you come across a town that says, we don't want you to do that. That'd be great.
Sounds like a great job for Josh. The guy's not here.
He's just got
So-
nominated.
Like he's the best person for it.
Tim, I asked you about those 2 counters.
Yes.
Why would the state have counters on back roads like those 2?
I think the one probably, Phil, is because of a bridge project.
Right, I figured the Marcy, but the other one is a relatively new bridge, and
We've had a hard time getting answers from the state as to why they're doing it. Throughout the state, what Phil's talking about is the traffic counters, the tubes that go across the road, they just show up periodically on town roads all over the place, and sometimes in places that make no sense at all. And there was I guess you'd call it conspiracy theory, Phil, that they're putting them on really, really low volume roads or at the end of roads to justify less funding for the towns. The towns were pretty mad about it. A lot of the town highway superintendents were ripping the counters out because of it. Because they're like, how come they pick that road that literally no cars are going down? Because you've already observed that's what they picked. and
for a very short time too. It was only
Yeah.
a few days they had.
2 or 3 days, they'll throw them up, take them out. And so there was a lot of thinking or emails going around the state going, is the state trying to show that our roads really aren't that important because they're not getting enough traffic volume?
Compared to the MTA, which is
Right.
starved for
Oh my
funding.
goodness, the black
Yes.
hole. Yes.
So the state executive committee for the town association reached out to New York State DOT last year over this issue, and they refused to answer questions. They just said we have an obligation to find accurate traffic data, and there's engineering reasons why we do what we do. That was kind of the formal response.
Don't question us.
Don't question us. We'll do what's in your best interest.
Well, I want to question you about something else.
Okay.
I've led a sheltered life, and I don't know what you mean by micro paving.
Micro paving. So micro paving is like a driveway sealer. And that's all it's meant to do is seal, just like oil and stone.
Okay.
But it's a nicer process for village-type residents. And what they actually do is take driveway sealer, and there's a hopper on a truck, like a cement mixer, and they mix the driveway sealer with sand and concrete. And then they squeegee it on the road, just like mopping it on the road. And you have to keep the lane closed for about 20 minutes. And then they can open it up to traffic. It hardens very quickly, and it looks great. People like it. It's more expensive than chip sealing, and it's not appropriate to do on a major county road, but it's great. Like, we just did it in Beaver Falls. We did it on Covenant Street in Krogan, because where are you going to sweep off any loose stone onto people's lawns? And there's closed drainage systems that you don't want the stone to get into. So you pay a little bit more for this process, and it's more appropriate in those hamlet, village-type settings. Does that make sense? So, one of the things that I have been trying to bring to the county is that you got to have a lot of tools in your toolbox. There's not a one size or one fix for every problem out there. So the more of these, like when I did it, not too many people have used that process up here. But I think it's important in those residential areas that you do it.
My time is done.
Thank you, Tim.
So's Tim's.
Yeah.
So,
Told me 10 minutes.
I know we'd mentioned, I don't want to forget it, possibly establishing an ad hoc committee to look into this. Is that something we want to do now, or do we want to just do it at the next committee meeting in June or July? Or sorry, not committee, but the...
Tim, do you have some recommendations of the people, the town folks you want to get involved, or was it one committee per town, or what were you?
I was just thinking if there was a legislator, myself, we would reach out to each town and ask for that highway superintendent and supervisor to meet with us, and we
We don't
just.
really need a committee then, or is it? I mean, is it a committee? Then it'd just be us kind of...
Well, it could be two legislators, whatever you guys feel is appropriate, and we would just meet with each town.
Yep.
Good plan.
Well, I could set it up and it could be made up of the legislator that represents that town. And
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
with you. And
That would be fair. Thanks. Very good. Like for some of the town, I mean, Wellville's got like 4 people in it now, so, we can figure that out as we go.
pick and choose.
Let's stick with one.
All right, next, Joan, you're up. Indigent Defense Council rates.